Thank you. Ooh. First off, I would call on the Commission Secretary, Commissioner Holt, to call the roll, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Anthony. Here. Commissioner Armstrong. Here. Commissioner Brown. Here. Commissioner Connolly. Here. Commissioner Johnson. Here. Commissioner Cassettis. Here. Commissioner Kittredge. Here. Commissioner Knight. Here. Commissioner Lucas. Here. Commissioner Lynch. Here. Commissioner Middleton. Here. Commissioner Moore. Here. Commissioner Myers.
Here.
Commissioner Purcell. Here. Commissioner Ryder-Dove.
Here.
Commissioner Roundtree.
Here.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Here.
Commissioner Warren. Here. Commissioner Weber. Here. Commissioner Womack.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have the floor.
Thank you, Commissioner Holt. The first action item would be to review and approve the minutes of our November 2015 meeting in Miami. Can I have a motion, please? And second. It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Committee reports. We first call on Commissioner Warren, Chair of the Corporate Affairs Committee.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. I called the meeting of the Corporate Affairs Committee to order at 8:30 this morning in Mills 3. In attendance, we had Commissioners Conley, Purcell, Weber, and excused absent but now present Commissioner Womack. We are also joined by Executive Director Hartley, Human Resource Specialist Garner, Board Chair Myers, and Director of Client Services and Relations Parrish. The first item on the agenda was the review and the approval of the November meeting in Miami, followed by the acknowledgement of the conflict of interest forms that had been distributed. We wanted to note that they had been remitted to the full commission and accepted. However, no further action is required by the full commission, and there were no noted conflicts of interest. We reviewed the 2015 budget and accepted the audited financials. I would just like to point out the following figures. Total assets of $6,715,136 versus liabilities of $4,025,568 for net assets of $2,689,568. Total revenue, $5,295,093 versus expenditures of $4,926,468 for net revenue of $368,625. Negative investment of $54,914,000. We looked at highlights of revenues and expenditures for 2015, as well as got an update on the major projects for 2015. With that, I would like to make a motion on behalf of the Corporate Affairs Committee that we accept the 2015 audited financials.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the audit. Any questions or concerns? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Commissioner Warren.
Next item on the agenda was actually the review of the 2015 audit. As you know, we contract with RAFA to conduct our financial audit, and these are the findings. The audit was conducted in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. The audit report expressed a clean or unmodified opinion with no accounting pronouncements. All financial activities for the year materially conform to generally accepted accounting principles. No transactions entered into by the Commission during the year were significant or unusual. There were no disagreements with management concerning financial accounting reporting or auditing matters that could be significant to the financial statement or the auditor's report. The audit revealed no material weaknesses, and the financial records were determined to fairly represent the Commission's financial position. The audit did reveal a few items regarding financial reporting that resulted in adjustments, which are routine. During the audit, no other issues were documented for action or consideration, and as a result, there was no management letter provided. The CALEA staff participated in an interview with the accountants on February 19th, 2016, when it was indicated that it was a good audit with no issues. The auditors commented that the organization demonstrated good financial health. Overall, the accounting firm was very complimentary of the efforts applied by the Commission in applying its financial policies and no documented recommendations, again, stating that there was no need for the production of a management letter. With that, on behalf of the Corporate Affairs Committee, I would like to make a motion for consideration by the full Commission that we accept the 2015 audit.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or concerns? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries, and I would note for the benefit of our audience, this is the first time that we've been able to determine in CALEA's history that there was not a management letter issued with the audit indicating recommendations. It's a reflection of how clean the procedures are, that the auditors felt there was just nothing to recommend, and that's quite an achievement. And we certainly want to credit Director Hartley and all the staff who have worked to that end. Commissioner Warren.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda was an update on the 2016 budget. We're only 3 months into our fiscal year for 2016. However, I would just like to point out a few of the highlights. Assets of $6,686,516 versus liabilities of $4,092,636 for a fund balance of $2,618,880. Revenues to date, $518,263 versus expenditures of $487,285 for net revenue of $30,978. Negative investment income of $88,361. I would also like to point out that the St. Louis Conference has projected exceeded attendance of 500. We're about 550 in attendees that projects for positive net revenue at the conclusion of this conference. That's an information item only. The next item on the agenda was an update on the Virginia Employment Commission review and hearing the findings and RFP requirements for payroll processing. And if you bear with me or indulge you, I'll ask for your indulgence because we'll have several recommendations, and I feel that it's important to read into the record as they do have implications. But just for background, in 2013, the Virginia Employment Commission randomly audited the commission and found that the use of assessors as independent contractors was not in adherence to the IRS 20-factor test. And they indicated that assessors must be classified as part-time employees and thereby subject to employment tax. After an appeal and multiple continuances, there was a final ruling that confirmed the initial finding, and it was determined that it was not in our interest to for any subsequent appeals. And so as a result, in order to implement the findings, I'm going to make several recommendations that not only pertain to the status of our assessors, but how we process our payroll going forward. They'll be in the form of several recommendations. Recommendation number one, authorize transition engagement with paychecks for payroll and technical HR support at a projected annualized rate of $22,345 to be adjusted based on implementation period, which hasn't been set to date. Recommendation number two, authorize the transition of all assessors to part-time limited engagement employees for the purpose of client assessment services. Recommendation number three, authorize the application of employer responsible taxes for part-time limited engagement employee assessment services as pass-through costs to agencies effective upon transition of assessors to part-time limited engagement employees. Recommendation number four, authorize an increase in the 2016 budget for revenue from assessment services of $62,809 for employer payroll tax reimbursement by agencies to be adjusted based upon the implementation period. Recommendation number five, authorize increase in the 2016 budget for cost center assessment payroll tax of $62,809 for employer payroll tax expenditures to be adjusted based upon the implementation period. Recommendation number six, authorize an increase in the 2016 budget cost center for contracted services by $13,845 for full-time and regular part-time employee payroll transactions to be adjusted based upon the implementation period. And recommendation number seven, authorize an increase in the 2016 budget for revenue center from assessment services of $7,500 for part-time limited engagement employee payroll transactions to be adjusted based upon the implementation period. And so on behalf of the Corporate Affairs Committee, I would like to make a motion for consideration by the full commission, the approval of the aforementioned recommendations.
We have a motion with extensive recommendations and a second. Any questions or concerns? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Commissioner Warren.
The next couple of items are information items. One, an update on the assessment report project. As you know, we are in the process of implementing the assessment report project. There had been funds allocated to finish the project of $50,000 additional funds, and we received an update that that project is in the testing phase, soon to be completed. Next, on the website development, as you know, we authorized a major project for an upgrade of our website. Due to the complexity, it was determined that we needed an RFQ to put out an RFP. As a result, we did identify Brown and Company at an estimated cost of $28,000, which has already been allocated to lend their expertise to prepare the RFP as well as to evaluate the RFP, in addition to other services provided in the contractual agreement. Again, that's in order for us to proceed with the development of the website and enhancements to the website. And then lastly, an action item regarding our per diem policy. On behalf of the Corporate Affairs Committee, I would like to make a motion to the full commission for consideration to increase the per diem from $50 to $65 per day.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or concerns? Commissioner, for clarification, is there an effective date for
Yes,
that motion?
effective January 1st, 2017.
Okay, thank you.
For the record,
Is the
thank you.
seconder in agreement with that? All right. Any questions or concerns on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Commissioner Warren.
That concluded the business of the Corporate Affairs Committee, and we adjourned our meeting at 9:27 a.m.
Thank you, Commissioner Warren. I'm sure I speak for all client agencies in expressing our gratitude for the due diligence that's carried out by the Corporate Affairs Committee each meeting in conducting the business of CALEA with the strongest focus on what's in the best interest of our clients and keeping our financial standing healthy. And I think we certainly see those results. So thank you for your hard
You're
work.
welcome.
Next up, we have the Outreach Committee, and I call on its chair, Commissioner Moore.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Outreach Committee did meet this morning. We convened at approximately 8:30 a.m. in the Mills 1 studio. I was joined as chair by Commissioners Casetas, Holt, Lucas, and an able-bodied staff consisting of Jim Brown and Jonathan Jackson. The first item on the agenda was the committee did approve the previous minutes from the previous meeting, which was held in November in Miami. The next item on the agenda would be committee received a report from staff on the 2018 conference contracts. 3 sites are currently being considered. I'll name those: Frisco, Texas in March of 2018, Grand Rapids, Michigan in July of 2018, and Savannah, Georgia in November of 2018. We are currently scheduled for site visits for all 3 of those locations, and we are pending contract signature on all of those. And Mr. Chair, I also have a motion which I would like the full commission to consider. I have Outreach's requesting a recommended motion to the full commission that CALEA have only 2 conferences in 2019, one in November and one in April or May. Will be flexible on that time frame. The second motion would be that in November.
Let's deal with the first
Okay.
one. All right,
Yes.
we have a motion for 2 meetings in 2019.
Correct.
One in November and one in the spring at a date to be determined.
That's correct, Mr.
And
Chair.
do I have a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments on that? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Commissioner Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Continuing, motion number 2 is that the November 2018 CALEA conference be canceled and rescheduled to November 2019, deferring 1 year, at the Hilton Savannah, DeSoto in Savannah, Georgia's.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? And the motion carries. Commissioner Moore.
Mr. Chair, I also had for commission information only, a motion number 3 that the 2019 conference RFP is adopted with adjustments appropriate to associated attendance for a committee conference in April or May, and that's information only.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Moore. And I think it's noteworthy for the audience, as has been discussed previously this week, having gone to the 4-year cycle, there will be this window of time where we won't have any reaccreditations at the end of the 3rd year. So the only agencies to come before us will be initial accreditations. And it is with that in mind that we're looking at this transition period to have 2 meetings in those years, and then presumably as the flow goes back up in the 4th year, we'll resume our normal schedule. And I appreciate Outreach finding a path forward for us, again, to maintain fiscal strength and deal with the flow of agencies based on that change. Thank you, Commissioner Moore. Next up is the Standards Review and Interpretation Committee, chaired by Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. SRIC met this morning at 8:30 a.m. in Grand E Room. The committee was assisted by Accreditation Manager Karen Shepard and Regional Program Manager Randy Scott. The first item of business was the approval of the minutes from the November 2015 Miami, Florida Conference, and those minutes stand as approved. The committee then approved the proposed revision to Communication Standard 5.2.12 relating to training upon promotion by striking the wording "or reassignment." The proposed revision had previously been posted to the field for comment, and at this time I join with the committee in recommending to the full commission the adoption of Communication Standard 5.2.12 as revised, and I so move.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The committee then reviewed proposed revisions to Communication Standards 1.3.3 and 1.3.4 relating to specialized assignments. In essence, the changes would make this an if standard. The committee also accepted draft language to revise Communication Standard 3.6.6 relating to the supervisor's role and discipline. Following discussion, the committee then approved the revisions for these three communication standards, 1.3.3, 1.3.4, and 3.6.6. These standards will be given further consideration for adoption at the next conference following receipt of client comment. The next item of business before the committee was discussion on a training academy standard 5.2.3 relating to notification of eligibility for selection. The issue at hand was a conflict with the wording in this standard and a related standard in the law enforcement program. The committee determined the appropriate and preferred course of action on this matter would be the removal of training standard 5.2.3 from the multiple programs checklist, and on direction from the committee, the staff will be taking that action. The next item of business before the committee was a request for revision to Training Academy Standard 7.2.6 relating to unsuccessful completion of training. However, after discussion, the committee declined the proposed revisions and therefore no action was taken. The committee then discussed a proposed new standard for training academies relating to firearms ranges. That standard was approved for posting to the field for comment and will be given further consideration for adoption at the next conference following that action. SRIC committee member Commissioner Middleton then provided those in attendance with a brief update and a tentative timeline on the proposed revisions to the 5th edition law enforcement standards. And if I may add, after 9 months and nearly 100 hours, the Law Enforcement Standards Review Committee, chaired by Commissioner Lisa Womack, has presented a draft version of the revised standards to the SRIC committee at the March CALEA conference here in St. Louis. The starting point for review of the 5th edition began with the review of the 21st Century Policing Report, and then with each of the subsequent reports that came out from the Department of Justice, the state investigative authorities, the RAND Corporation, COPS Office, PERF, IECP, and others. The committee met for an initial on-site meeting at CALEA headquarters on June 18th and 19th in 2015, and then each week for the next 20 weeks, the team reviewed the full manual chapter by chapter and then met each Friday for 2 to 3 hours to discuss until the full manual had been reviewed. Then on March the 4th to the 6th of this year, the committee met for a final review and analysis of the draft to be presented to SRIC here in St. Louis. Some of the key accomplishments and areas of focus of this review were on technology, cultural changes and demographics, cultural changes within organizations, changing threats, shifting paradigms, evolving training needs, and transitioning leadership requirements and expectations. The next step regarding this process is the committee presentation to SRIC here at this conference, and following receipt and review, it is now anticipated optimistically that SRIC will give quick approval for the posting of the manual for public review. Following the gathering of client feedback and presentation to SRIC for comment and approval, the revised manual will then be presented to the full commission for adoption. It is anticipated that SRIC will receive, review, and approve for posting to the field the law enforcement standards by mid-April, allowing for their further consideration and presentation to the full commission for adoption at the July conference in Baltimore. Mr. Chair, there were no further agenda items before SRIC this morning. However, during the open mic forum, the committee was presented with a letter from the State of Ohio Accreditation Resource SOAR President, Mrs. Amy Haley, seeking CALEA support of SOAR's efforts in petitioning the State of Ohio for a waiver for CALEA accredited agencies regarding the new set of state standards for law enforcement agencies handed down by the Ohio Collaborative Community Policing Advisory Board. The letter was read into the meeting and received by the SRIC with the indication to Mrs. Haley that it would be presented to the full commission for their consideration. I would add that Mrs. Haley commented on the fact that many Ohio agencies, having devoted a significant amount of time, personnel, and resources to the CALEA accreditation process, and it is now defeating for those agencies to be advised by the state that their efforts are not being acknowledged. So specifically, SOAR is seeking a written communication to the state of Ohio from CALEA in support of their efforts in their quest for a waiver for CALEA accredited agencies. And Mr. Chair, with no other further business before the committee, the SRIC meeting was adjourned this morning at 8:50 a.m.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. At this time, I'd like to just deviate for a moment from the agenda and offer Commissioner Womack, who has chaired the Law Enforcement Standards Review, to make any comments. Before she does, I just want to say, for the benefit of our audience, I think it was understated even, the description that Commissioner Johnson gave of the tremendous effort, the number of hours, the tireless dedication that all members of the committee who have been working on this have made. And I just want to tip my hat to Commissioner Womack as chair of this effort. You've done an incredible job to pull together so much in such a short amount of time. So I'd like to offer you the opportunity, any comments you'd like to make at this time.
Mr. Chair, I don't think that I can summarize any better than Commissioner Johnson has on the process and what we went through. One, I'd just like to thank you for appointing me chair of the task force. It was an honor and a privilege to do so, and I'd like to acknowledge all of the hard work of the rest of the task force members and the staff members. I always forget someone, so I'm going to have everyone that did it just please raise their hand so we can, come on. Those that were, there we go, because I always forget someone. It was, you know, now that we look back, yeah, I can say it was a fun process. But to you that are the client agencies, the people that I have talked to about this, I urge you to look at this with a very critical eye. We stayed and adhered to CALEA's guiding principles as we looked at each and every one of these standards, but it was to an eye of where we're going and not where we came from. And so we did look at CALEA tradition, but we also looked at where CALEA needs to be as to continuing to be the leaders in defining what is law enforcement best practice. So please keep that in mind as you give it a critical look. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Commissioner Womack. Our next committee is the Awards Committee, and I call on the chair, Commissioner Ryder Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Awards Committee, consisting of myself, Commissioners Brown, Warren, Knight, and Lucas, met by email between February 1st and February 8th, and also on February 22nd. First item of business was approval of the minutes from the Miami Awards Committee meeting, and then the resulting 2 action items, which I will submit as motions for Bittner Awards. The first is a motion to approve the Superintendent of the University of Pennsylvania Police Department, Maureen Rush, for the Egon Bittner Award.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Commissioner Ryder Duff.
Item 2 is a motion to approve the nomination of Sheriff Ben Johnson of the Volusia County, Florida Sheriff's Office for the Egon Bittner Award.
I've got a motion and a second. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Commissioner Commissioner Ryder Duff.
Well, she was it a long time, so that concludes the business of the Awards Committee.
Thank you very much. Next up is the CASP Committee, which is chaired by Commissioner Womack, but I'm not sure if Commissioner Knight's going to fill in or if you're...
I don't have the information.
All right. We had planned that Commissioner Knight would issue the report for that committee today. Commissioner Knight.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Mr. Chair. The CALEA Agency Support Program Committee met via WebEx conference call on Monday, January 25th, 2016 at 3:15 p.m. Committee members participating included Chairperson Myers, Vice Chairperson Weber, Treasurer Purcell, Secretary Holt, and Member-at-Large Knight. We were also assisted by Executive Director Hartley, Director Client Services Parrish, and Regional Program Manager Shaw. Beyond the minutes, approval of the minutes, and after approval of the minutes, we entertained 2 items of business. The first was a proposed change to the criteria for the CALEA Agency Support Program. Regional Program Manager Shaw presented a proposed change to the Commission criteria for consideration as it applies to the CALEA Agency Support Program. The change would eliminate the requirement for applicant agencies to be comprised of 50 or less full-time members, but keep smaller agencies as the primary focus of the award through the following program language, which I've just lost. Just a moment. That language, the proposed amended language would read, the CASP committee will review the application materials with a primary focus on providing awards to agencies with less than 50 full-time personnel and to make recommendations for awards based on financial need and the maximum number of IAFWs available that fiscal year. Additionally, the committee may choose to consider such factors as previous distribution history related to program type, geography, or any other variable that impacts CALEA's overall mission or the program's intent. In the absence of qualifying agencies with the number of personnel identified in the policy, the Commission may extend awards to other qualifying agencies. Mr. Chair, our committee voted unanimously to recommend the adoption of the proposed language, and so I therefore move on behalf of the CASP committee that the Commission adopt the proposed change to the CALEA Agency Support Program as submitted.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Commissioner Knight.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our second item of business involved the identification of applicants for CASP assistance in 2016. Regional Program Manager Shaw noted that the following 2 agencies had applied for the 2016 initial accreditation fee waiver, the IAFW. Those 2 agencies are the Bensonville Police Department, Illinois, and the Maywood Police Department, Illinois. Staff have reviewed the applications and recommended approval of IAFWs for both of the applying agencies. Our CASP committee voted to concur on that recommendation and so recommends. I move that the commission approve the applications of the Bensonville, Illinois Police Department and the Maywood, Illinois Police Department for initial agency fee waiver per the commission's CASP policy.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Commissioner Knight.
Sir, that concluded the business of the CASP committee, and we adjourned at that time.
Thank you, Commissioner Knight. Finally, we have the International Committee that met this week, and I will call on its chair, Commissioner Conley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The International Committee met Thursday, March 31st in Mills 1. Attendees included myself, Commissioner Middleton, Commissioner Weber, and Commissioner Myers. There were no action items reviewed in the meeting, and the committee discussed that CALEA would continue its current international engagement policy. Other discussion included a request by the committee for staff to research how other international accrediting bodies address international engagements and prepare a report for the Commission's future consideration. There was no other business discussed, and the meeting was adjourned at 11:55.
Thank you, Commissioner Conley. Now we come to what is always one of the most challenging aspects of our open business meeting, and that is the questions and comments from the floor. We usually are very challenged to cope with the onslaught of folks who line up to provide us quality feedback. Hopefully today we'll manage that just fine. I would invite at this time anyone from the audience who wishes to ask questions or has concerns for the good of the full commission. Going once. I must reiterate that the commission is very, very committed to serving our clients. We do receive very good quality feedback, both on posting of potential standard changes when we post to the field, but also staff has certainly ramped up the efforts to engage with not only the PACs throughout the country, but also various advisory groups, particularly a tip of the hat to Executive Director Hartley, who goes out of his way to reach out and contact client agencies just to see how we're doing. So we'll choose to interpret the lack of feedback this afternoon as a good indicator that things are going pretty well. Thank you. There are no old business items on the agenda to deal with. Are there any new business items from the commission? Hearing none, I would now invite our Executive Director, Craig Hartley, to the podium for comments and announcements.
All right, Mr. Chairperson, thank you for having us here, and thank you to the entire Board of Commissioners for your work. You can tell that each and every time that we get together, the focus is always on how we support public safety and contribute to the broader professionalism in the industry. Not unlike the accreditation process, this begins with a sound organizational infrastructure. And through the support of Corporate Affairs Chairperson Thomas Warren and Treasurer Anthony Purcell, this year the Commission recognized, as you've already heard, a remarkably blemish-free audit for 2015. This is not only a reflection on how we keep track of our funds, but also how we create accountability and integrity within our own business processes. Also, since we last met, as you've already heard, Commissioner Womack has continued her leadership of the Law Enforcement Standards Review Committee. This has included the involvement of those persons who raised their hands, but I'll give them credit again, Commissioners Knight and Middleton, Holt, Purcell, Johnson, and more. As you have heard, this is a major project for this organization and has included several other professional associations like the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, the National Sheriff's Association, and the International Association of Chiefs of Police. Again, this work has been ongoing since May of last year, and has really been directed to ensure the standards remain contemporary and provide strong returns on investments for participating agencies. As a little note here, since we last met, this organization has also continued its efforts in the development of a web-based assessment tool. Staff and commissioners have participated in certificate presentations, accreditation coalition meetings, national conferences, and other professional association meetings to help support CALEA. The commission has also appointed Commissioner Pete Casetas, Chief of the New Mexico State Police. He was confirmed by the founding associations and appointed, and we certainly welcome him as a member of our team. Chief executive officers from around the country also participated in the Executive Director's Regional Advisory Board as another strategy for feedback and outreach to our clients. And finally, and probably most importantly, this organization conducted 97 agency assessments for this particular conference. We know through experience, each of us know through experience, that the process of accreditation makes a difference for organizations. Because of this, we strive every single day to make sure the process remains the mark of professional excellence for public safety agencies. We try to ensure that our brand is strong, and we focus on remaining visible in professional publications and advertisement spots and trade shows. We have made presentations to city councils and other related industries, such as the International City and County Managers Associations, and we've attended community forums with the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, where we discuss the hard work that these agencies in this room and in attending the conference this week have applied to get and remain accredited. We believe hard work should be recognized, and the public needs to know about your commitment to professional excellence. And every time we get the appropriate opportunity, we remind others that CALEA agencies are the 5%ers. We're the 5%ers, but we represent 25% of this nation's law enforcement officers and a large percent of those in the other vocations, really representing what I believe to be the very best in the industry. Although sometimes we do this below the radar, CALEA often strives to make certain the public safety voice of our agencies is heard at the federal level too. As an example, we recently contacted Congress to advocate for release of federal forfeiture funds to support law enforcement efforts. As you know, they were withheld by the Department of Justice. And we have participated in the development of model policies with the IACP, ranging in subject matter from reporting on uses of force, to handling bomb threats, to investigating sexual assaults. We know that we have a responsibility in the public safety community, and we will take that responsibility seriously for you. Now today, there's some folks in the audience that are waiting to meet with commissioners and committees about issues regarding their most recent assessment. It's important to note that these meetings began yet as another strategy by this commission to support agencies in the process to ensure continuous organization improvement. So, if you've been invited to meet with the commission today, please make a note of these meeting locations. Committee A will meet in Mills 1. Committee B will meet in Mills 3. Committee C, Mills 5. Committee D, Mills 8. And Committee E, Mills 9. Again, these meetings are by invitation only and are really designed to provide an opportunity for commissioners to learn more about specific details regarding a recent assessment of the agency. As a special note, on December 31st of 2015, Commissioner Joseph Farrow, Colonel of the California Highway Patrol, retired from the commission. And although he cannot be with us this week, he asked me to share this with the group about his perspective. He says, and I quote, "Accreditation is more important than ever," and he challenges agencies to keep the course of setting the standards for others to follow. He reminded me in a phone call I had with him this week that the commission has been invaluable in advancing his own agency, and he has always been humbled by the extraordinary level of professionalism he has observed with this commission. Commissioner Farrow gave 5 years of service to CALEA, and for that we are very grateful and we wish him well. Finally, I'd like to recognize the incredibly diligent efforts of staff. You guys work tirelessly to make certain these conferences go off as a success, and I think this commission is forever grateful for your contributions. I encourage you, each of you attending today, to share your ideas with us as we continue to grow as an organization that's learning. CALEA matters, and we value your involvement with us today. Thanks again for joining us here in St. Louis, and please enjoy the remainder of your conference. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Director Hartley. I would echo praise for the staff. Not only do they fill enough chairs to make it look like we have legitimate attendance at our business meeting, but they really are the behind-the-scenes folks. And I have to tell you, as much as we get done at these 3 meetings a year, which is substantial, it's a fraction of what gets done throughout the year. Not only the work of my fellow commissioners, but the staff who are really working each and every week to keep the CALEA process, because this is a process, turning and moving along. By means of closing comments, you know, this is a tremendous time of change in our business. And while many seek to cling to what has been, forces at large in society, certainly, as has always been the case, and some of us who have been in the business a while can attest to this, change is the one constant in our business. And so CALEA, through the law enforcement review that Commissioner Womack has chaired, the meetings that SRIC copes with each meeting, and the other efforts we make are all a reflection to try and help keep our client agencies at the cutting edge of change, but in a way that is more evolutionary than revolutionary. Certainly this is a time in which everyone in our industry is under tremendous scrutiny, and often it's the CALEA accreditation process that brings clarity and standards of excellence to the forefront to increase public trust and confidence in what we do. So we certainly want your input and feedback to help us kind of shine a light on that path forward on this journey we're all on together. Before I adjourn, I don't know if this is an April Fool's story or an accurate story, but one of my peers has alerted me that a familiar face in the audience today, someone who I really enjoy talking with almost at each and every conference, Rob Sophie, today is your birthday. Is that an accurate statement, Rob? Congratulations. Well, if it isn't, happy April Fool's Day. If it is, we wish you the best. Like me, you're just one more year closer to Medicare. So. With that, delighted to adjourn, and we will see you all at the banquet tomorrow night following the hearings. Thank you. We are adjourned.